In today's story, a young mother walks into a grocery store with her daughter and gets humiliated by the cashier in front of everyone. They called her a thief, accused her of fraud, made her little girl cry. But what that cashier didn't know was that the store owner was watching everything, and he knew exactly who that woman was. This is a story about sacrifice, about judgment, and about how the people who struggle the most often deserve our respect the most. Stay until the end. When the truth comes out, you'll never look at a struggling parent the same way again. Sarah Mitchell was 28 years old, and she was exhausted. Not just tired, not just sleepy, exhausted in a way that went bone deep, soul deep. She worked 2 jobs, waitress during the day, cleaning offices at night. She slept maybe 4 hours a night if she was lucky, and she did it all for one reason: her daughter. Emma was 6 years old, brown curls, big eyes, a smile that made everything worth it. Emma's father, Sarah's husband, Daniel, had died 2 years ago. Brain aneurysm, sudden. No warning. One day he was there, the next day he wasn't, and Sarah's world had shattered. But she didn't have time to fall apart because Emma needed her. So Sarah worked and worked and worked. She paid rent, kept the lights on, put food on the table. She made sure Emma had clean clothes for school, had her favorite cereal in the morning, had bedtime stories at night. And she never, ever let Emma see her cry. But today had been especially hard. Sarah's car had broken down again. The mechanic said it would cost $800 to fix, money she didn't have. And Emma needed new shoes. Her old ones had holes in the soles. Sarah had tried to patch them, but they weren't going to last much longer. So after her morning shift at the diner, Sarah took Emma to Thompson's Grocery, a small local store in their neighborhood. She had $43.67 in her checking account, and she needed it to make it until Friday. She budgeted carefully: rice, beans, eggs, peanut butter, bread, the basics, and 1 box of Emma's favorite cereal, the one with the cartoon tiger on the box. Because even when money was tight, Sarah wanted Emma to have something that made her smile. They walked into the store together, Emma holding Sarah's hand. "Mommy, can we get the cereal?" Emma asked hopefully. "Of course, sweetheart," Sarah said, forcing a smile. "We always get your cereal." Emma beamed, and Sarah's heart broke a little more, because she knew she'd skip lunch again tomorrow to make the budget work. But that was okay, as long as Emma was happy. Sarah and Emma walked through the store, collecting their items: rice, beans, eggs. Emma carefully carried the cereal box, hugging it like treasure. At the register, there was a young woman named Brittany, 22 years old, freshly promoted to assistant manager, and very proud of it. Brittany wore her name tag like a badge of honor. She'd been working at Thompson's for 6 months, and she took her job very seriously. Maybe too seriously. Sarah and Emma approached the register with their basket. Brittany looked up from her phone. Next. Sarah started unloading items onto the belt. Brittany scanned them without enthusiasm. Beep, beep, beep. "That's $41.23, Brittany said flatly. Sarah pulled out her debit card. She swiped it. Declined. Sarah's heart sank. She tried again. Declined. Can you try one more time? Sometimes It's declined," Brittany said, louder than necessary. "You don't have enough money." People in line behind them started looking. Sarah felt her face flush. I know I have enough. There must be—" "Do you have another card?" Brittany interrupted.
No, just let me check my balance. Sarah pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She checked her account. $43.67, just like she'd thought. But there was also a pending charge, $15. Her heart dropped. The gas station, this morning, she'd forgotten it hadn't cleared yet, which meant she only had $28.67 available. "I'm so sorry," Sarah whispered. "I didn't realize. Can you remove a few items?" Brittany sighed dramatically. "Which ones?" Sarah looked at the groceries. She needed the rice, the beans, the eggs. That left the bread and the cereal. She looked at Emma, who was watching with worried eyes. "The cereal," Sarah said quietly, "and the bread." "Mommy, no, I want the cereal," Emma said, her voice small. "I know, baby, but we can get it next week." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But you promised." Sarah knelt down. "I know I did. I'm sorry, but—" "So what am I supposed to do with these?" Brittany asked, holding up the bread and cereal impotently. Sarah stood up. "I'm sorry. You need to figure out your finances before you come shopping," Brittany said, her voice carrying through the store. Sarah felt like she'd been slapped. "I'm very sorry," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "I made a mistake." "Yeah, you did," Brittany muttered. Sarah paid for the remaining items, now $27.84. Her card went through. She grabbed the bags with shaking hands. Emma was crying now. "Mommy, I wanted the cereal." "I know, baby. We'll get it next time." "You always say next time." She sobbed through tears. And Sarah broke. She sat in the driver's seat and cried. Because her daughter was right. There was always a next time. Always something they couldn't afford. Always something they had to give up. And no matter how hard Sarah worked, it never seemed to be enough.
Inside the store, Brittany was feeling pleased with herself. "Some people," she said to the customer next in line, "have no business shopping here if they can't afford it." The customer, an older woman, looked uncomfortable. She seemed like she was having a hard day. "Yeah, well, we all have hard days," Brittany said. "That doesn't mean you get to hold up the line." What Brittany didn't know was that there was a security camera pointed directly at her register, and someone was watching. In a small office at the back of the store, a man sat at a desk, reviewing the day's footage. His name was Robert Thompson. He was 61 years old, the owner of Thompson's Grocery, and he'd been running this store for 32 years. He'd seen the whole interaction, and something about it bothered him. Actually, everything about it bothered him. Robert rewound the footage. He watched the young mother's face as her card was declined, the embarrassment, the panic. He watched her kneel down to comfort her crying daughter. He watched the cashier's dismissive attitude. And then he saw something that made him sit up straight. The woman's face. He knew her. Robert stood up quickly and walked out onto the floor. He looked at Register 3, where Brittany was still checking out customers. Then he looked at the parking lot through the window. The old car, the woman sitting in the driver's seat, her head in her hands, the little girl crying in the back seat. Robert's heart clenched. It was her. Robert walked quickly to the register. "Brittany, I need you to step aside for a moment." Brittany looked surprised. "Mr. Thompson, I'm in the middle of—" "Now, please," Robert said firmly. Brittany stepped aside, confused. Robert turned to the customer at the register. "I apologize, ma'am. My colleague will help you at Register 2. He gestured to another cashier. Then he walked to the door and out into the parking lot. He approached the old car. Sarah was still sitting in the driver's seat, wiping her eyes. Robert knocked gently on the window. Sarah jumped, startled. She rolled down the window. "I'm sorry. she said automatically. "I'm leaving. I just—" "Sarah Mitchell?" Robert asked gently. Sarah blinked. "Yes?" "You don't remember me, do you?" Robert said with a kind smile. Sarah looked at him, confused. I'm sorry, I don't—" "That's okay," Robert said, "but I remember you, and more importantly, I remember your husband." Sarah's breath caught. "Daniel?" "Yes, Daniel Mitchell, 2 years ago." Sarah stared at him, and then slowly the memory came back.
It was late at night. Robert was closing up the store. He walked to his car in the empty parking lot, and then he heard voices, angry voices. 2 men were standing near the dumpsters behind the store. One of them had a knife. They were trying to rob someone. Robert's heart raced. He reached for his phone to call 911, but before he could dial, a 3rd man appeared. Young, early 30s, medium build. He'd been taking out his trash from the restaurant next door where he worked as a cook. "Hey," the man said loudly, "leave him alone." The 2 attackers turned. "Mind your business," one of them said. "I can't do that," the man said. "Let him go." What happened next happened fast. The man with the knife lunged at the would-be rescuer. There was a struggle, and then the 2 attackers ran. The young man helped Robert to his feet. "Are you okay, sir?" he asked. Robert was shaken but unhurt. Yes, I think so. You saved my life." The young man shrugged. "I just did what anyone would do." "Not anyone," Robert said. "What's your name?" "Daniel Mitchell." Robert shook his hand. "Robert Thompson. I own the grocery store. Please, let me thank you. "You don't have to thank me," Daniel said with a genuine smile. "Just be safe, okay? Maybe don't close alone." Daniel started to walk away. "Wait," Robert called out. "At least let me give you my card, if you ever need anything." Daniel came back and took the card. "Thank you, but I'm good. Take care of yourself, Mr. Thompson." And he left. 2 months later, Robert heard that Daniel Mitchell had died suddenly, an aneurysm. He was only 31 years old. He left behind a wife and a young daughter. Robert had tried to find them, to offer help, to do something, but he'd lost Daniel's card, couldn't find an address, and eventually life moved on. But he'd never forgotten the man who'd saved his life. And now, 2 years later, that man's widow was sitting in his parking lot, crying because she couldn't afford a box of cereal. "Your husband saved my life," Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. "2 years ago, 2 men tried to rob me. Your husband stopped them. If it wasn't for him, I might not be here today." Sarah's eyes widened. "That was you? He told me about that. He said he helped someone, but he never said who." "He was a hero," Robert said, "and I've been trying to find you ever since, to thank you, to help you, but I didn't know how." Tears were streaming down Sarah's face. "I didn't know." Robert looked at Emma in the back seat, her face still wet with tears. "Come back inside, gently, please." Sarah and Emma followed Robert back into the store. Brittany saw them walking in and frowned. "Mr. Thompson, I already handled that situation." "Go to my office," Robert said quietly. "Now." Brittany's face went pale. "But now." Brittany left. Robert turned to Sarah. "Please, wait here 1 moment." He went to the cereal aisle and grabbed the box with the cartoon tiger. Then he grabbed the bread Sarah had put back. Then he kept going. Milk, fresh vegetables, chicken, pasta, fruit, cheese. He filled an entire cart. Sarah watched, her hand over her mouth. "Mr. Thompson, I can't." "Yes, you can," Robert said firmly. "Your husband saved my life, and I've spent 2 years wishing I could thank him. Please let me do this." He brought the cart to the register. And then he looked at Emma. "Young lady, what's your name?" "Emma," she said shyly.
"Well, Emma, do you like that cereal?" She nodded. "Good," Robert said, "because you're getting 2 boxes, one for now and one for next week." Emma's face lit up. "Really?" "Really," Robert said with a warm smile. He rang up everything himself. The total came to $187.43, and he paid for all of it. Sarah was crying again. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Robert said. "Your husband was a good man, and you're a good mother. I can see it." He handed her a business card. "This is my personal number, and I want you to promise me something." "What?" "Whenever you need groceries, you come here and you ask for me, and I will make sure you never leave without what you need. Understood?" Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded. Robert loaded the groceries into their car himself. When he was done, he said, "One more thing. That car, it's not safe. How much does it cost to fix?" $800, Sarah said quietly. "But I can't—" "Yes, you can. Give me the name of the mechanic. I'll call them tomorrow." "Mr. Thompson, this is too much." "No, it's not enough. Your husband gave me my life back. The least I can do is make yours a little easier." Back inside the store, Brittany sat in Robert's office, nervous. Robert walked in and closed the door. He sat down across from her. "Do you know who that woman was?" he asked. "Just some customer who couldn't pay?" "Her name is Sarah Mitchell. Her husband, Daniel, saved my life 2 years ago. He died 2 months later. She's been raising their daughter alone ever since, working 2 jobs, barely sleeping." Brittany's face went pale. "And you," he continued, his voice hard, "humiliated her in front of her daughter, in front of other customers. You made her feel worthless because she made an honest mistake." I didn't know." "You didn't need to know," Robert interrupted. "You needed to treat her with basic human decency, which you failed to do." Brittany looked down. "I've been running this store for 32 years, and I've built it on one principle: treat people with respect, especially people who are struggling, because you never know what someone is going through. You never know what battles they're fighting." He leaned forward. "Sarah Mitchell is fighting every single day to provide for her daughter, and she's doing it with dignity and grace, and you treated her like she was a problem to be solved." "I'm sorry," Brittany whispered. "You should be," Robert said, "but I'm not the person you need to apologize to." He stood up. "Sarah and her daughter shop here every week, and from now on, whenever they come in, you will treat them with nothing but respect and kindness. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "Good, because if I hear otherwise, you'll be looking for a new job." Brittany nodded, tears in her eyes. "You're dismissed," Robert said. Afterwards, Robert sat at his desk for a long time, thinking about Daniel Mitchell, about how one act of courage had saved his life, and about how he was going to spend the rest of his life making sure Daniel's family was taken care of. Over the next 6 months, Sarah's life changed. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily. Robert kept his promise. He paid for her car repairs. He made sure she always had groceries. He connected her with a better-paying job at a company owned by a friend. And slowly, Sarah was able to breathe again. She still worked hard, but she wasn't drowning anymore. Emma started thriving too. She joined a soccer team, made friends, smiled more. And every week, when Sarah and Emma came to Thompson's grocery, Robert made sure to say hello. He always asked Emma about school. He always made sure they had everything they needed, and he never, ever made them feel like charity cases. He made them feel like family. One day, 6 months after that first encounter, Sarah came to the store with something in her hand. It was a framed photo of Daniel. "I want you to have this," Sarah said to Robert, "so you can remember the man who saved your life." Robert's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, but I don't need a photo to remember him. I see him every time I look at you and Emma.
I see his kindness, his courage, his heart." Sarah hugged him. "Thank you for everything." "Thank you," Robert said, "for letting me honor his memory." As for Brittany, she never forgot that day. She'd been given a second chance, and she didn't waste it. She started treating every customer with genuine kindness. She volunteered at a local food bank, and whenever she saw a customer struggling, she remembered Sarah Mitchell, and she chose compassion. 6 months later, Robert called Sarah into his office. "I want to do something, and I need your permission." "What?" asked Sarah. "I want to create a scholarship in Daniel's name for children who've lost a parent to help with school expenses, extracurricular activities, college someday." Sarah's breath caught. "Robert!" "Your husband saved my life," Robert said, "and I want his legacy to be that he saved hundreds of other lives too, through the children who benefit from this scholarship." Sarah couldn't speak. She just cried. "Is that a yes?" Robert asked gently. "Yes. Yes, he would have loved that." The Daniel Mitchell Memorial Scholarship Fund launched 6 months later. In its first year, it helped 12 children. By year 3, it had helped over 50, and every single child who received it learned Daniel's story, about how he'd stopped to help a stranger, about how that one act of courage rippled forward in ways he never could have imagined, about how heroism isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just choosing to do the right thing when no one else will. Sarah Mitchell never remarried, but she wasn't alone. She had Emma, she had Robert and his wife who became like family, and she had the knowledge that Daniel's legacy was living on, not in monuments or awards, but in the lives he'd touched, and the lives that continued to be touched because of him. As for Emma, she grew up knowing her father was a hero, not because he wore a cape, but because when someone needed help, he didn't walk away. And that lesson, that simple, powerful lesson, shaped her into the kind of person who would one day help others too. Because heroism isn't inherited, it's taught by parents like Daniel and Sarah, who show their children that character matters more than anything else. Never judge a struggling parent, because the person you see falling apart in the checkout line might be the strongest person you'll ever meet. They're working 2 jobs, they're skipping meals, they're sacrificing everything, and they're doing it with love. That's not weakness, that's heroism, and it deserves respect, not judgment.